My parents were given a month to consider in court for a divorce, and the worst part is that I was also invited. I sat in the courtroom, looking at the intimidating table where the judge was sitting. "Who will you live with, Christina?" she asked me sternly, and the answer froze on my lips. It all started about 3 months ago. My parents had been happily married for 13 years, and then they announced their divorce. After the first visit to court, a big struggle for custody of me began between my mom and dad. Dad gave me a new iPhone, Mom bought me a ton of designer clothes. Dad bought me gold with diamonds, and Mom gave me her car. Gifts kept pouring in endlessly for a whole month. Cool, you might say. Yes, in a way it's cool, if you don't consider the circumstances. I felt like a damn jackpot, not a daughter. Who was I supposed to choose? Who would give more, or who was more expensive? I considered the choice in my case as the biggest torture. And no one asked me about a third option. What if I didn't want to choose? What if I want to live as before with both Mom and Dad and without these gifts? And what if true love between father and mother can't be measured by money? Huh? But the reality was different. And I thought, well, what if I create a third option for myself? I sold some things and sent my mom her favorite flowers to her workplace. Only my dad and I knew that she loved exactly 5 pink roses, 5 white ones, and 7 red ones. He always gave her those flowers. They symbolized tenderness, trust, and romance. And my dad loved berries the most, strawberries. But if he ate too many, he'd have an allergic reaction, so my mom would only buy him 3 pieces. So I sent him 3 pieces a day. About a week went by like this. It seemed to me that it was the perfect time for a conversation. I invited both my mom and dad to dinner, then planned to leave and leave them alone. I booked a table for 7 o'clock at the 8th table in the seafood restaurant, which my parents loved and I hated. But no one came. Not at 7, not at 9 o'clock. I had some salad and went outside. My phone was silent. Not a single message or a missed call. That's when, at that moment, I realized that I needed my parents' marriage more than they did. Because I didn't want the divorce. I didn't want to choose one of them. I needed both my parents. I wasn't ready to accept the idea of having to see one of them constantly and the other only on weekends. I sat in that beautiful restaurant for another half an hour. I drank water, left 3 strawberries and 17 roses on the table. Then, determined, I took my backpack with only a charger, a couple of bucks and headphones, got on the last bus, and headed to the train station. Desperation and injustice overwhelmed me. I don't want to live like this. I don't want to choose. I want everyone to leave me alone. That's what I told myself as I went wherever the train took me. After an hour, I found myself in an unfamiliar place, some park. I sat on a bench and watched families, children, parents, all walking along together. Despite it being so late, it was summer, and the evenings lasted longer. All these people were so happy. What if they got divorced because of me? What if they simply don't love me? I suddenly thought. That thought made me very angry. Then a man walked by. He asked where my mom was, and I replied that I didn't have any parents. That's when I quickly realized I'd said something wrong. He sat down next to me and started asking questions. I felt uncomfortable. I didn't want to talk to him, so I moved away, but he grabbed me by the backpack. I managed to break free, leaving my bag behind, and ran as fast as I could. He was chasing me, and I was running for my life. I nearly got hit by a car while crossing the road, and he was shouting, "Stop! I'll help you! I'll show you something!" I found myself at a dead end, and he was slowly approaching. I didn't have my phone. It was still in my bag. So I covered my face with my hands and heard some strange noises. Then, opening my eyes slowly, I saw the man lying on the ground, with my mom and dad standing nearby. "Christina, I'm sorry, sweetheart. Are you okay? Did he hurt you? I got delayed at work. I had a flat tire and my phone died." I sat on the road and burst into loud sobs. "I don't want to live like this. Just leave. Maybe it would be better if you caught up with me. It's better than choosing between the two of you. Aren't children from broken families always at risk and in danger? Do you want to deprive me of that?" My parents just hugged me, and tears streamed down my face even more. They had both arrived at the restaurant at the same time and understood everything when they saw the roses and strawberries on the table. The waiter then pointed out to them which bus I took. Mom and Dad promised that they'd try to live together. They promised that they'd make an effort to change and go to a family psychologist. What? You might say that it wasn't the right thing to do? That it's manipulation on my part? Yes, maybe. But at least I reminded them of the most important thing, that I'm not an object to be bought, and that there won't be anyone to stand up for me if one of my parents isn't there when needed, like today. Also, if you were given a choice, which of your parents would you choose, and why? Imagine a date that is worth moving mountains for girls, and a guy for whom your heart is ready to beat twice as fast. And it was you who had the chance to drive him crazy, but you missed your effing chance. Hi everyone, I'm Helga, and I'll tell you how long it took to get my dream date, only to ruin it later. My crush appeared at school, handsome Jay, tall, rich, smart, and divinely handsome. He arranged a kind of charity raffle. The point was to raise money to repair the shelter for homeless animals. The prize for the winner was a romantic evening with Jay and Monique. Well, they're like the two most popular people at school. To participate, all you had to do was pay a $300 deposit, write your name on the piece of paper, and wait to be drawn. It was a lot of money, but the shelter needed a major overhaul. I borrowed some money from a friend, and Jay pulled out my name. I couldn't believe it. I just had to go on that date. The whole school envied me. While I was trying to empty my little sister Emmy's piggy bank, she stood behind me. Her coughing caused me to drop the china pig on the floor, and I was terribly ashamed. She was a smart child beyond her years. She immediately advised how easy it is to make big money. There were several paid social experiments in our city, and I decided to participate in each one of them in order to earn not only my contribution, but also a Gucci dress. It would fit me perfectly. I had all of 2 days. First, I went to a new establishment where we were blindfolded and allowed to taste an incomprehensible, semi-cold, mushy liquid. I didn't understand what the point was, stuffing the 10th portion into myself. We were spoon-fed and remained silent. There were different tastes: potatoes with lemon, zucchini with onions, pumpkin with milk, and something else. I was almost nauseous and opened my mouth to spit out the sock-flavored puree, but I was beaten to it. Some guy shouted, "Damn, shit is more pleasant than your mashed potatoes," got up and left. Hooray! I was paid $200 and almost green. I came out of there and ran right away to the next experiment, where I had to starve. It won't bother me, I thought, but it did. For the next 10 hours, I lay on my side in a half-empty room with bare walls. A nurse walked around me, took urine for analysis, measured my blood pressure. In addition, a tube was inserted into my stomach through my throat, preventing me from breathing normally. After 2 hours, I asked to be allowed to watch at least TV, and they turned on the boring news because I wasn't even supposed to see food. The essence of the experiment wasn't really that clear to me. After a long couple of hours, they pulled out the tube. I already thought that everything was finally free, but I was allowed to go to the toilet and asked to come back. It was almost impossible to sleep, although I terribly wanted to. I was majorly tired. I just counted up to 1 trillion and then reversed it many times. I wanted to give up, but I was lucky that my neighbor in the other room protested and pulled a pipe out of her mouth. I was handed $900 and I walked out. Above all, at that moment, I wanted to go home and go to bed, but another experiment awaited me, in which I had to take $1,200 and buy myself a dress and repay the debt. I entered a dimly lit room, sat down in an armchair, and board games were placed in front of me. Sudoku, crossword, chess, backgammon, and cards. I had to play and solve at least 2 tasks several times and not fall asleep. The fewer mistakes, the closer the victory. That experiment lasted 20 hours. That is, at the end I had to buy a dress, get ready, and immediately go to the restaurant. The first 2 hours were even fun despite being tired. And then I solved the Sudoku and crossword puzzles not so fast. After 6 hours, the games were changed for us, and I took the tablet to pop bubbles of the same color. It seemed to me that something colored would distract and wake me up, but I was wrong. We were closely watched, and I just imagined my date with Jay. What would I have at dinner? What would I tell him? Would I confess my feelings? What would we talk about? What if he kissed me? Wow! We have a winner! I sharply heard someone's voice in front of me. Did I do it? I won? I hadn't slept in almost 2 days. Yes, yes! From the sharp adrenaline rush, I took my money and ran to the store for the dress. But there, a surprise awaited me. It was worn by another girl. I looked at myself in the mirror, disheveled with bright red eyes, barely able to stand on my feet. Like a robot, I resolutely followed her to the fitting room and took off my dress from her by force. Then I threw the money at the checkout and changed. You can't even imagine what I went through for this! I shouted at the end, got into a taxi, and arrived at the restaurant. Where is Jay? I asked myself, sitting down at the table, and then he came in, like from the cover of a fashion magazine. Jay sat down at the table, looked at me, and I almost said, "I love you." And he said, "Good morning, Helga. You didn't pass the experiment. I'm really sorry." What? Jay, what are you talking about? What kind of... Helga, open your eyes. Time is up. What time is up? We just arrived. Jay's voice got louder, and then it sounded like a woman's. Helga! He shouted in this auntie's voice, and I opened my eyes. What? What was happening? I was lying in a room hugging the tablet. It was daylight outside the window, and other participants were nearby. Yes, I dreamed it. Nobody won that experiment. My tears of disappointment are hard to describe. No! I screamed, realizing that not only was I left without a dress, I'd also slept through my dream date. However, when I arrived at school, another surprise awaited me. Rumors about charity reached the principal, and he began to find out for which shelter they were raising funds. It turned out there was no such shelter. Jay and Monique got caught in a petty scam. So basically, my date wouldn't have happened anyway. All good wishes to you guys, and remember, never make money at your own detriment.